Good morning everybody and welcome to Wild Earth this morning here from Djuma Game Reserve in South Africa. You can see the impala behind me. My name's Tara. Joining me on camera this morning is Herman and back in final control is Sebastian. So I'm really excited to be out. There was a bit of rain yesterday but it looks like the skies are wonderful for the time being, and I wonder what animals we might be able to see this morning. The impala seem to be pretty relaxed. Over the last couple of days the lions have been around. So it's quite nice to see that they are quite relaxed again. And there's even been one or two new additions to the impala herd. I saw some very tiny impala young, but I'm not too sure if they've moved into the bush now. But let's take a drive a little bit further along and see if there's any more that we can see this morning. There's a couple just behind us. We might be able to see them. Move alongside them. There's one skipping and jumping just now. Tiny little thing it was. We're going to move into shot, little one. Look at that size difference there. There's probably a good 2 or 3 weeks between those two. There's one just a little bit smaller. Female giving birth a little bit later than the rest of the females. Here, greenwood hoopoes up ahead too. Got a slightly deeper voice to the babblers. I think that very small impala's gone off into the bushes now. When the sun comes out, I think we'll see if we can take a drive down towards Gowrie Dam and see if the crocodile is going to be out and basking in the sun again. It's probably still in the water for now. The water holding a little bit more heat, a little bit longer than the air does. If anybody heard any animals calling around by the dam either this morning or late last night, please let us know. great to know if there was any leopard or lions calling, or anything else might be a little bit unusual. Been hearing the white-faced Scops owl calling, and the Scops owl too recently. It's a very high-pitched chirp, sounds a little bit like a frog actually, the Scops owl. Lots of elephant activity. I think this was from yesterday. Eating all the marula fruits, crossing the road, backwards and forwards. And if anybody would like to send through any questions this morning, send it through to finalcontrol@safari.tv.
Good morning, mobile. Morning, Ma'anus. I'm on Triple M now, heading south. Just wanna check this line. Okay, coming back and just gonna check to the south of camp here. So that we're able to then keep the line. Okay, copy, thank you. I will be here for you.
In morning stations, I'm going to be checking Treehouse Dam and Zoe's Road for the time being, and then head into the east. The last thing we heard about the leopards in Juneau was north in Buffalo's Hook. I think he was there yesterday morning as well. Mishu we haven't seen since we caught up with him on Voyatel Access a few days ago now. I think it's about 4 days ago. So he might still be in the area. And Karula, we last heard her tracks were in the west, that's why I want to check out Zoe's Road and maybe Treehouse Dam. And I think Henry from Voyatel is checking Triple M this morning, which is our western boundary. And there was some tracks of hers heading north. So she might still be in Zimbambili, or maybe even in Buffalo's Hook, trying to avoid the lions because they were here a couple of days ago. And at this stage, the cubs are just going to be a little bit too small to be able to climb trees to get away from predators. So she needs to be extremely careful and keep them well hidden away from any possible danger. funnily enough, we haven't been seeing too many tracks of hyenas over towards Impala Plains. That could be why she's been utilising that area. All over the rest of the property, there's been a lot of hyena activity. It's still a little bit chilly. Just as the sun is rising, you do get that drop in temperature. And with all the moisture in the air. Slight chill to it this morning, but I'm sure once the sun is up it's going to start being very warm. Unless the crowd that's in the east pulls in. But now, beautiful blue sky over Africa.
What do you want to do? I was trying to get into where everything's going on time. So just have to check out of you. Get for people to just
There's been some action around here. Like some hyenas, and some young hyenas digging, as well as hippos walking through here. Looks like the young hyenas were here, so I'm just taking some care having a look here. There's quite a range of track sizes here. These are all pretty fresh actually. It's quite nice actually after a lot of rain. The slate kind of gets white clean. You can see the tracks quite nicely because they register a little bit more in the soft sand. So you get a lot more detail in them. We've got, I wonder if we can get, can you see the sun's through there? Not really. Okay. Good morning to you, mister. The sun's just a little bit low at the moment. So we can go around. Come over and say hello to us. Good morning to you. Hippopotamus meaning hippo horse, water horse in Greek. Going for a closer look. Hippos do have some element of buoyancy. The baby hippos tend to have more than adults. But they don't swim in the water, so to speak. They pull themselves along the ground, at the bottom of the lake or river or dam, whatever the body of water that they're in. And then they push off from the ground. And they do have a little bit of buoyancy to try or to keep them at the surface of the water. They don't really float up, they push themselves from the ground so they can reach the surface again. I wonder, are you eagerly awaiting the sun as we are? Now the metabolism is very slow, and that does help with the cooler temperatures of the water during the winter time. During the summer, as I said earlier about the crocodile, they'll be able to stay a little bit warmer during the night as the water holds the temperature of the day throughout the night. It just starts to cool down in the early hours. Now, if you have a very high metabolism, you burn energy very quickly, and you can become extremely cold extremely quickly. So having a slow metabolism actually helps with that, not becoming too cold too quickly. And for an aquatic lifestyle like the hippo does have, that helps quite a lot. And hence they have small ears. If you notice on the African elephant, they have pretty large ears, and a lot of other animals that spend their time out in the sun have fairly large ears, and maybe folds in the skin to try and increase their body surface, to try and lose heat over that extra surface. But the hippo doesn't need that, because during the heat of the day they'll stay in the water. If it does get a little bit too chilly, then you will see them sunbathing, especially in the winter time. You'll see them out on the banks, but sometimes during the summertime too. The sun is just a little bit too covered by the clouds at the moment. Hoping we get a nice view of a sunrise. Actually, I wonder if we can, because the sun is just starting to poke through that little bit of cloud. Don't know if it'll work. Good morning to you, Deborah. Hope you're doing well this beautiful morning. And you've seen crocodiles blow bubbles as a threatening display and wonder if hippos do the same. I actually have wondered if they do that myself, because we have seen them sometimes when they do seem to be a little bit agitated with our presence, and they do put their heads underneath the surface of the water and make a bit of a splash, and then there is a few bubbles like that, but I don't think they actually blow bubbles like the crocodile would do. I haven't actually seen that. I think it's just the movement of the water and just trying to make themselves look much bigger and splashing the water around, just like a buffalo would splash, sorry, not splash, thrash the bush with his horns. Maybe an elephant throwing vegetation with his trunk, same sort of thing, just using what's around it to try and look a lot more intimidating. I haven't actually seen them actually blowing bubbles. It's not something I have heard of hippos doing. I'll certainly look into it. It could just be that we just haven't seen it. I can now start to feel the warmth of that sun. I'm not quite hearing who this question's from, but you'd like to know, why do hippos wiggle their ears so much? Is it Christopher? Oh, Stephen. Sorry, Stephen. Good morning to you. Or is it good evening where you are in New Orleans? Oh, Steve. Sorry, Steve. I will get there eventually. Actually, I want to go the other way. Or do I? I've just got some hyena tracks there. Let's have a quick look down towards the pans here. Well, good morning to you, Steve. Third time lucky. It's definitely an interesting question there. I've asked myself the same thing. And I think it's got a lot to do with the water. Maybe they're just shaking the water out of their ears. Because when they do, they seem to do it a lot once they've pulled their heads up. And I think sometimes it'll have something to do with the flies landing on their ears and they're just shaking them off just like other animals do. Because once they pull the head out of the water, there's not really anything else of the body out of the water. It's usually just the head. So it could be a couple of reasons there, Steve, but I think it has got something to do with them just clearing the residual water as they pull the heads out of the water. And they do close them. You can see they actually turn them as they drop below the surface of the water. So if you look carefully, just as the hippo is about to go into the water, the nostrils will close and the ears, from going straight, will go flat, and that actually closes them. Baby hippos do the same thing, especially when they're drinking from the mother. It will happen whether they're on land or in the water. They close their nostrils, they close their ears. And it's almost like a reflex when they start drinking milk. It'd be nice to see if we do have any new baby hippos this year. The youngest one that's been around on the property is little Bob, about a year old now, born live at Gowrie Dam around March the 5th. I was just missed that. I only arrived here in the Sabi Sands on the 12th of March. But we were lucky enough to see Bob's progress for quite a number of months actually before Mum decided to move on and find the rest of her pod again. We've got some old rhino tracks here. I don't think that hippo was the hippo we call Hungo. I think Hungo has quite a deep tear in his ear, and part of his ear actually flops over a little bit. That hippo had just a small tear in his ear. A little bit of Gowrie Lane, our southernmost boundary. Then we'll pop up onto Zoe's Road, I think. Good morning. How are you doing? Good, good. How are you guys? Beautiful morning, hey? Yeah, it is, hey? Yeah, for sure. Is there any tracks down that side? Nothing. Oh, that's from last night. South on Triple M. Okay. Crossing further over or just down into you? Okay. I'll have another look down that side then. Nothing at the moment around Treehouse. I'm going to just do Zoe's Road and have a quick look up that way. So yeah, I'll let you know if I see anything. Alrighty. Yeah, we've heard. Oh, is it down towards Arathusa now? Zimbabwe. Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks a lot, eh? Yeah, sure. Have a good one. Just getting some information about the tracks of Karula. They're just saying that they had her tracks coming south, and he was just confirming that the cubs are still on the west side, so she still has the cubs that side. But the tracks were seen coming south last night, so I think it's worth us checking out Zoe's Road, just in case we hit it lucky. The guys did drive down Triple M to see if there's any more tracks. Hi Anne, welcome on board this morning. And the reserve that we're driving is the Sabi Sands, and the whole of the Sabi Sands is privately owned. There's a lot of hyena activity here too. It's about 65,000 hectares altogether, and we traverse on Juma's property, which is about 10,000 hectares. Be about that for Juma within Sabi Sands, which means the lions roar. But for our how far technology has come. Even in just 6 years. When we first started out, there was a camera that refreshed itself with a still picture every 30 seconds. And when they progressed onto live game drives, they could only drive around a small area that we call the quarantine area, quarantine open area. And so have actually progressed to 800 hectares to 1,000 hectares, I think is pretty amazing. And the thing about Wild Earth is we're always trying to push the boundaries of technology. We're always trying something new. And I think that is what is pretty amazing about this whole concept. The fact that you could be sat anywhere in the world, as long as you have internet, and you can actually join us here in Africa on a live safari, ask questions as we're driving around, in the comfort of your own home. It really is just something that blows my mind when I really start to think about it. And I never heard of it until about a year ago, when I was called up by Emily asking if I was interested in coming down for an interview. And it really was, I just hadn't heard of the whole concept before, and I just thought that was absolutely amazing. The fact that you could have something like this and bring people together. With the same love and enjoyment of nature that you may not always necessarily get a chance to see. It's one thing to actually see it on a documentary, but it's completely different to watching it unfold in front of you. And you'll see we do drive around, and this is basically what you do as a game drive. And once you find the animals, then you can watch their behaviour, and sometimes there may be behaviours that don't make it into a documentary. It's not part of the storyline that they want to show you. We don't really have a choice in that sense, because it all happens in front of us. It all unfolds in front of us. So we can't always predict what's going to happen. We have to try and read the animal's behaviour and try and work out what is going to happen next, and try and be there at the right place at the right time. And there is just something to that, the whole live experience, instead of a story being told to you. You're actually watching that story in real time, and I think that's something very special. And of course now going into 3D, again, cutting edge of technology. To our knowledge, there's nowhere else in the world that does this. To do the 3D in safari and the live aspect of that. I think it is pretty incredible to be able to watch an elephant going right up to the vehicle, pulling its trunk up. I'd love to watch, I still want to watch the elephants eating the marula fruits from the other day. And they had the trunk right up, and you can see them stretching. And see that in 3D. And some of the footage that we've been able to get really does send shivers down my spine. The fact that we can have that experience and to actually see it in real life, and to actually see it on a 3D screen, it really does send shivers down your spine. It really does feel so much more than having the 2D. It really is. I can't really explain it, but to try it out, definitely see if you can have a look. Sometimes 3D is not for everybody, and I definitely appreciate that. But to definitely just have a look at it and just see what it's all about. definitely recommend trying it. Now, with it being such a large area, just try to listen to the radio, and that's exactly why we do have the radios. It increases our chances of seeing animals. So if we see particular animals, we'll let each other know via the radio. You'll notice all the roads have road names. So as a guide, it's up to you. Oh, there's an elephant. I see an elephant just on the opposite side of the open area. No, don't run away. I think that's our big male. We may get a slight drop in signal, but let's see if we can see him. I think this is the big bull from the other day. Are you walking on the road, mister? I think you are. See if we can have a nice front view of him. Stations 1 Madonna and Love clambering west towards Triple M from Impala Plains.
3.
Stations 1 Madonna and Love clambering west from Impala Plains towards Triple M.
2.
Just in the thick part of the bush. Yeah, the disappearing act. We're right on the edge of our boundary here. Let me see if I can turn around and we might be able to see him through that side. park here. We might just come out that side. You see the torture there? Right. It's amazing. He's such a huge bull. Come on, big boy. Go and have a look. Amazing how well they disappear. He's probably about 5.5 tons. He's quite a large elephant. Morning! Morning! Big elephant just in here. Good morning.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
No gala. Why?
Not yet. Did you have on consoles?
Yes.
No. Okay. I'm just going to pull back a little bit because there may be a gap through there, but he is moving further into the bush, unfortunately. I was hoping he was going to come out and have a look. No, too thick. Oh well, it was worth a try. On he goes. Nope. Oh, it was certainly worth a try. There's no animals that I can see around here, so maybe this hunting ground is exhausted now. The animals would have moved on for a little while. Probably will make their way back at some stage. At one stage we were seeing the zebra, the impala, the wildebeest down here. And they do move around in the area. Just different feeding spots. Away from where predators have been hunting. As I was saying, it's up to the guides when they arrive at a reserve to learn the roads. And once you've learned the roads, then it becomes a lot easier to understand where the animals are called in. So when we call an animal in, as you heard, we use the African name, or one of the languages down here in South Africa. And in this particular area it's Shangaan, so we we use the Shangaan names for the animals, and it just avoids any disappointment for the guests. Oops. One strand. So if the guests hear a lion, for example, someone says a lion, I've got a lion. Oh, I want to go and see the lion, but that lion could be quite a number of kilometers away, and by the time the guide gets there, the lion could have disappeared. So the guide can hear which animals are around, and he can then judge if he's going to be able to get there or not. So as you heard, I called in the elephant, and I told everybody which road he's on and which direction he's heading in. So anybody who's in that area can visualize the elephant walking from where he was walking from to where he's walking to. So if they think, okay, I can't get to that area, or he's crossing over into our boundary, then they can come and try and view that elephant, or at least he knows where that elephant was last seen. It's also very useful if you're trying to look for tracks of animals, if you're trying to locate an animal. So we let each other know which roads we're going to try and cover, so that everyone can try and cover different roads, and again try and increase our chances of seeing animals. Good morning to you, Donna. Welcome on board this morning. And I believe you had a question, but I couldn't quite hear it before. Maybe a comment. So maybe we might be able to have some luck with hearing your question now. Okay, I haven't actually heard, Donna. I haven't heard about apparently there's a few elephants dying in zoos due to lack of space, and that's probably lack of space in their enclosures. It's a very difficult one, Donna. And there's always a very big problem, and there's a lot of people that sit on different sides of the fence when it comes to zoos. Now, I'm not a great lover of zoos, and even though I was working in one, for me the problem is that zoos are needed to help preserve and raise awareness of animals. Now, you can do it through documentaries, and you can do it even as we're doing here on Wild Earth. But not everybody is willing to sit down in front of the TV and watch a wildlife program. But there are a lot of people who are willing to go and see animals and maybe show the children. And that's where I really found my love for animals, wild animals, was visiting the zoo when I was a child. And that actually helped me really to start wanting to learn more about animals. But I'm not a great lover of the fact that we need to have zoos. I'm not a great lover of the fact that they are needed. And what I really don't like is if zoos are concrete and cage, because that's where the original idea came from, was to put animals on display for humans and for enjoyment and entertainment. That was the whole reason why zoos existed. And there was no understanding of welfare, there was no understanding, obviously they knew they had to feed them, but there was no understanding of the behaviour and things like that. Nowadays there is, and I don't think it anywhere that has animals in zoos has any excuse not to think about the welfare of the animal. There is absolutely no excuse. And to have an animal in a small enclosure, a barren enclosure, and not fed correctly, I really do think there is absolutely no excuse, and I feel very strongly that animals must be looked after properly. Log. I thought it was going to be much heavier than that.
You know, if there was like lead wood, you wouldn't have been able to pick it up.
I know. I was thinking this is going to be quite heavy. Actually, I shouldn't have shown you on the inside, that you would have thought it would have been really strong. I was looking, just checking for any scorpions, anything like that in the bark. But nowadays zoos play not only educational roles, but also raising awareness, raising money for animals that are out in the wild, and also to try and keep certain species alive. And there's a number of species where they're only alive in captivity now, and there is a lot of rehabilitation, reintroduction of animals into the wild. And the captive animals are some of those animals that do get put back out into the wild. The problem being, we need to try and sort out the areas that they get put back into first. There's no good putting animals back out into the wild if they're just going to be taken out of the wild again. So you need to make sure that the area is stabilised and suitable. And ooh, giant African land snail in the road. Alright, there you are. I'm not going to see it too well. Maybe we can have a quick look at it, but the sun's on the wrong side, unfortunately. But just after the rains, it'll be moving around again. And once the rain's finished, they'll find somewhere to go and bury themselves into thick vegetation, maybe a nice sandy spot. And when they retreat into the shell, they'll have almost like a trap door, which is there's a deposit that gets laid down, and that can keep them moist for maybe 3 years or so, like that. So if there's a really harsh time, they can survive like that, just shut away in the shell until more favourable conditions become available again. I must have felt the vibration of the vehicle and maybe decided actually it's not such a bright idea crossing the road at this stage. Although he is actually sat in a better place. At least he's not right on the side. We can drive with the wheels around it, so we don't need to disturb it. He's about, the shell will be about that size. You can see my hand. I'll just make sure that my wheels go around it. Actually, let's go down towards Chelapan now. Any more tracks there? So Donna, you're asking for my thoughts on that. I think it's very sad, and animals shouldn't be kept if there's no space. Should not be kept in that area. But as I say, it is a sad reality that zoos are needed to try and keep species alive. And there is generally all over the world a policy and an association to try and keep the standards of how animals are kept and looked after high. But unfortunately there are still a lot of places that don't fall in under that association, and that's the problem. And that I don't agree with. But a lot can be learned. I learned a lot, especially about rhinos from captivity. And there's a lot that I've started to understand from rhinos because of working with them in captivity and seeing them in captivity. And I've actually seen those behaviours in the wild, and I probably wouldn't have picked up on those behaviours had I have not had that experience with the animals in captivity. So if the animals are looked after, and looked after right, and they've got enough space, it is possible for the animals to be content. And if they're content, then you see those natural behaviours. And that's really where I learned how intelligent rhinos are. I never probably would have appreciated it, or may even not have picked it up, or probably wouldn't have picked it up from just seeing rhinos in the wild. But they are very intelligent creatures. So hi to Laurie. Good morning to you. Great to hear from you, and on to a different subject now. Seeing a lot of insects flying around, butterflies or moths, and you'd like to know what they are. Are they butterflies or moths?
Are you still with that thing, but it's still on bottom down? I'm checking bottom down. Okay. Yeah, that's
Andrew, come in.
Stand by.
Whereabouts is that lock? Copy, thank you so much. Apparently a big male leopard and vula is out and about in the east, in Torchwood. So I'll keep my ear to the ground, because he may move this way onto our territory. Onto our territory. We're going to go and mark our territory now. Onto our property. Having a quick look here at Chelapan. But there's many different species of moth and butterfly, and there are are a few species of moth that may fly during the day. But generally what you've been seeing are butterflies. And I keep trying to see if we can show you some species. I found the broad-bordered yellow butterfly the other day. That was nice enough to stay put for us. It's very difficult because they don't tend to stay put too long, and when they do rest, they're off again. But the orange ones that you've been seeing can be the African monarchs, which are quite big butterflies, and they've got quite a lazy flight. But there is also a mimic of the African monarch. Actually, these elephant tracks look fairly fresh. Maybe we should turn around and head towards Twin Dam Road. Well, we are in Twin Dam Road, but maybe head towards Gowrie Dam on Twin Dam Road. Let's try that, and we might be able to actually go over the wall at Gowrie Dam instead. There's not really any other tracks this side at the moment. So as I say, there's a lot of different species. The African monarch is the orange one that you may see a lot. There is another very common one that we really haven't had a chance to see yet, which is the blue pansy and the yellow pansy. The yellow pansy is a lot more common than the blue. Yellow with a little blue spot. The yellow pansy. Citrus swallowtail, I've seen a few. Black and yellow butterfly, quite a large butterfly again. Owl-striped moth. We haven't really, they tend to be more towards dusk. Tend to be a little bit more active. If I do get a chance to try and show you a few butterflies, then I will do. And our elephant tracks are gone. We might be in this block here. at this. Oh. Just trying not to get too close. All the little chicks just sitting there in that little patch of sunlight. Obviously trying to warm up a little bit there. Crested francolins. Come on guys, come back out onto the road. The chicks, when they hatch, they're ready to be able to move around and feed by themselves. They really need the parents for protection more than anything. There we go. Sure, they're very tiny, those chicks. Not very old at all. And also needing the parents to really show them what to eat. And also help them out a little bit. But you notice the chicks are all the same size. Now some birds, especially the tree nesting birds, where the chicks aren't able to feed themselves, they rely heavily on the parents for food. And just see if I can pull back a little bit. Oh, they've gone. But if they do rely on their parents for food, a lot of those birds will start to incubate the eggs just as they start to lay the eggs, whereas these ground nesting birds, like the francolins, they'll start to incubate the eggs once the last egg is laid. It may take a couple of days before that happens, but it does ensure that the chicks all hatch out at the same time. So all the noise that's associated with the eggs cracking and the chicks hatching is all in one go. Join your family, little one. So it keeps that noise all concentrated at one time, and also that means the whole family can start moving on. They're not tied to the nest where that noise may pull predators towards it. So you generally find the nesting birds will have that strategy. And the tree nesting birds start to incubate as soon as they start laying the eggs, and they may hatch at different times. Head back onto the quarantine open area just to see if the baboons are around. I'm sure your cat's enjoying me talking. It's great to hear. Thanks, Barbara. Finally he's sitting up and watching. He's also interested in nature. And I certainly would love to have the wild dogs. That's why I was actually checking those tracks very carefully this morning, because it looked like they could have been the wild dog going through there, just down by Treehouse Dam. But there was a lot of hyena tracks over them. There could have been small tracks, could have been the jackal that were digging. There was the baby hyenas or young hyenas and adult hyenas all over it too. So it's very difficult to work out. I think we'll also see if we can try and go down Shaban Road at some stage. That was what my next plan was going to be. With it starting to warm up quite nicely, I just wanted to check out and about on this side. But they don't come through and stay too often through our little part of the reserve. And wild dogs have quite a huge home range. They don't really have a territory. The only part that they mark as a territory is usually around the den sites. It's usually quite a small territory. But the home range can be huge. Now a reserve, a small reserve, is not allowed to have wild dog unless they have around 24,000 hectares or larger, so it gives you an idea really how much space they need. And they are one of the most successful, if not the most successful, predator here in Africa. Forget the amount now, but it's around 60 to 80% of hunts do end in a successful kill. So they are a very successful predator. And if the reserve is too small, they'll just eat everything, which obviously is not a balance. What have we had here? Leopard has walked through here. Maybe we should try Zoe's Road. There was leopard walking through here sometime last night. I think we did extremely well. Last year we had the wild dogs probably about 8, 9 drives, something like that. It probably said a few less drives, but we actually did have them a couple of times. We had the pack of 21, and we had 2 members from that pack of 21 for that. So there's always a possibility. They seem to come through more in the winter time. Possibly because the animals have to go and visit water holes, and the water holes become fewer and fewer as time goes on. That's possibly what makes them spread out more or cover more ground during the winter time. But there is always a possibility of them coming through at some stage. Same as the cheetah, even though this is not the preferable habitat for the cheetah. They prefer much larger open spaces, but there is a possibility of seeing cheetah. Another hippo. Oh, little Bob. Looks like little Bob. Little Bob here at Gowrie Dam. And it does look like our crocodile's out. Yay! We're just talking about hippo ears and the fact that they shake them a little bit earlier. And if this hippo does put its head down, just watch those ears swivel and close as they do put the head underneath the water. Hippo is more interested in what's going on outside the water. as winter does go on, you will see, if there's hippos here, the terrapins starting to sit on the back. And a lot of people were asking a little while ago, why don't the terrapins sit on the backs of the buffalo? And we hadn't seen it for quite a while, or we hadn't seen it, and I think it's because the buffalo backs tend to be a little bit more pointed and a little bit more difficult to climb on. But I did see footage the other day where Patrick found a buffalo sitting in the pan, I think it was cheddar pan, and there was 3 terrapins sitting on his back. So it's not impossible for the terrapins to get up there, but I think it just takes a little bit longer or a little bit more effort to climb onto the backs of a buffalo rather than the hippo. Hippo backs tends to be a little bit more rounded, maybe easier to climb on. We're going to have a look at the crocodile. There's the crocodile. This is definitely the favourite spot of the crocodile. Yesterday it was sitting with its tail half drooped over the bank into the water. And the hardy-dars sitting quite close to him, or her. And there's the water thick knee as usual. They seem to also like that side of the bank. I don't think they're willing to give that up just for a crocodile. Actually there's 2 of them, one on each side of the crocodile. Now one thing you need to watch out for, especially on the waterhole camera throughout the day, is the crocodile opening its mouth. So the crocodiles will sit out and warm their bodies up. They are a reptile. In fact, I think they're the largest reptile in the world now. They can reach about 6 meters in length and weigh about a ton, especially the saltwater crocodiles in Australia. I think they're the largest crocodile. Our Nile crocodile, which is what you see here, is slightly smaller. But they'll rest on the banks during the day and increase their body temperature, and they can move around faster. When they're cold, they're very lethargic, so they can move around pretty quickly after they've warmed up. And it'll also help with digestion, so if they have caught something and they come out onto the bank to warm up, it'll aid with the digestion. If they don't do that, what they've eaten will sit in their stomachs and rot. So they need to warm up their bodies to be able to digest that meat. But if it gets too hot, they'll then open the mouths and allow the air to flow over the mouths to cool them off a little bit. And if it's still too hot, that's when they'll retreat back to the water. So certainly watch out for that mouth opening on the camera. Maybe one of these days we'll actually see it coming out of the water. That would be wonderful to see. And it's very difficult to really comprehend how fast crocodiles can run, and they can outrun a human. So if I was to walk up to it and it was warm enough and it maybe felt threatened by me, it could chase after me. But generally crocodiles, you don't really hear of crocodiles taking down prey on land. They'll sit in the water and wait and ambush animals coming down to drink or birds on the surface of the water. They may eat some fish too, especially this size. But as they get larger, they'll eat more larger animals. So that really does dictate what they can eat, just the size of the crocodile. Beautiful colours on it though. White-faced ducks flying in. And we're starting to see them gathering together again. The white-faced ducks can form flocks, and we've only been seeing one or two around. It's nice to see them starting to form a flock. And good morning to you, Cynthia. Welcome on board this morning. And I think it's just the fact that we don't have too many baboons in our little area. You're wanting to know why is it that Kruger seems to have more baboons than it does we do in the Sabi Sands. And I think there could be a couple of reasons. Oh, there's another cat print here too. I think we do need to head down to Zoe's Road again. quite spread out. Just want to quickly check down Google Roads, just part way. It could be you're just seeing a lot more baboons because the baboons are attracted to areas where there's humans, because where there's humans there's easy food. And they do pick up on that very, very quickly. So it could be that's why they tend to be more around the roads and the lodges, and that's what gives you the impression of there being a lot of baboons in the Kruger. Whereas here in the Sabi Sands, excuse me, because you have to be out with a guide, then it stops people, and sadly people do throw litter and things like that out along the roads. Not too many, thankfully, but some people do. It stops people throwing litter out. So that's why you won't really get the baboons sitting along the roads like you do in Kruger. And also, as I say, we traverse about 800 hectares to 1,000, and baboons are territorial. And we've got one troop of baboons, and when Graham first started his research on the baboons, he said that there was quite a large troop, and that troop split, and some troop went south and some of the troops stayed here. And I think this is the centre of the territory, so that's why we don't really see another troop of baboons up here or in this area. And it's only really the one lodge in their territory, and even though sometimes they come and raid the bins, and we obviously try and put things in place to stop them doing that. Occasionally someone might forget to put a clip down on the bin, or forget to shut the door properly or something like that, so they still find ways to get in, and they like to raid our house as well occasionally. We did find that it wasn't baboon proof after all. But generally speaking, they will forage for themselves. They're not fed by humans. They will fend for themselves, so they have to go out and forage, and that's possibly also a reason why we don't see them as much as maybe you see baboons in the Kruger. So I think there may be a few reasons for that. I think it's more of a perspective than anything. Maybe where the areas where you've seen them, there just tends to be a lot more in the troop than our troop. But at one time, I think the troop here, if I remember Graham correctly, I think he said there was about 40 or 60, somewhere like that, so it was a very large troop. And we don't really know what caused them to move down south. It's very difficult to say. But if the troop was 40 or 60, then it would also look like there's a lot of baboons in this area. But because they're only really numbering at the moment 6 adults and 1 baby, it's a very small troop. So that also gives you an impression that there's not too many baboons here. Okay. grey body. Maybe we're in for a little bit more rain. Animals tend to have this ability. If you notice before the rain hits, we weren't seeing too much in the way of animals. And when there's rain, when there's going to be a lot of rain, the animals tend to move into thicker bush, maybe higher ground. Maybe they're trying to tell us something. Or maybe not trying to tell us something, maybe we should interpret their behaviour. And that was what was very interesting about the tsunami when it hit a few years ago now. Not one animal, wild animal, was killed. They all took refuge higher up in the mountains. They all knew it was coming. They went a couple of days before. It's also thought that frogs can predict as well. They also disappear a couple of days before. I think that was to do with the volcano erupting, if I remember rightly.